So now, you get an RFP. Let's say you've passed the go, no-go process. You've got an RFP that actually is right for your firm. What are you supposed to do? Well, upon receipt, you need to read that RFP. Same thing that Dawn said. And you need to read everything from start to finish. I recommend this to marketers, and I recommend this to technical people alike. You know, a lot of people have a tendency just to go to, you know, the one little area of the RFP, like maybe the technical person will go to just that project description, and the marketing people might just go to the qualifications page to see what's due, how many copies, and what's the deadline, okay? And not read about the project. Big mistake. Big mistake. Because the RFP is the best source of information to you about this client and about their concern. And you know, we in this industry have a bad habit of focusing on, here's our qualifications, here's what we can do, here's what our people know, hire us. Instead of going, here's your project, this is the problem, this is the challenge of the project that you have, and boy, we know how to meet those challenges and help you get the project you want. You have to start flipping the way you're looking at this. It's not just about showcasing your talents and your qualifications and your experience, but at the RFP stage, it's about how that experience is going to help them achieve what they want. Okay? So let's take a look at this RFP. I took this, it's 2 screens, and I have taken this straight from a New Jersey RFP ad in a newspaper. And it's a short one, so I mean, admittedly, when you get an RFP, it's much bigger than this, but this is a short one for our purposes here, for a request for information, okay? So just read along with me. The New Jersey Assembly is soliciting proposals from highly qualified and experienced consultants to provide programming, design, and construction documents, as well as construction phase assistance for restoration and rehabilitation of the 3rd and 4th floor historic assembly spaces, including the ceiling of the assembly chamber. Okay? There's your description of the project. Interested parties should contact the Director of Procurement in writing to be included on the mailing for the RFP. Clear direction there, okay? Requirements: highly qualified and experienced architectural engineering firms. Well, is there anybody here who is not highly qualified? We're all highly qualified, right? Okay? Now, we've got a proposal due date. We've got a contract term of 1 year. Projects in Trenton. And we've got a contact person, the Director of Procurement at the New Jersey State Assembly. That contact person is your new best friend. So that when you read that RFP, you had any questions at all, that's the person you call with the question. And I want you to feel comfortable making that call. I could still remember when I was just a marketing coordinator without a lot of experience, and I was working with one of my key engineers, a really smart guy who had a degree in architecture and engineering. He was just brilliant, and he's looking at the thing, and he's got all these questions, and I said, well, look, there's this name here. Why don't we call them up and get the answer? And he's like very nervous about my calling them. And I said, I just picked up the phone and I called, and now when he realized he's listening as I'm making this phone call, and as I'm getting answers to the questions we have, he now starts feeding me questions on the spot, because all of a sudden he feels comfortable that the person I have contacted will answer the questions that we have. So I want to assure all of you, if you've never done this, that you should feel perfectly comfortable contacting the point of contact listed in the RFP. Now, let's take a look at this description once again. What are the things that pop? Well, for me, the first thing that pops is this is a restoration and rehabilitation project. Do you have experience in restoration and rehab? Because if you don't, you shouldn't be responding to this RFP. But if you do, now, what else do you want to look at here? Well, this is historic space. Do you have experience with historic spaces? Maybe you don't, but if you still have restoration rehab experience, you might still want to proceed with this, okay? And then look at this. This is a very short advertisement, and yet they bother to mention the ceiling of the assembly chamber. Makes you kind of think there's something special about that, doesn't it? If you don't know anything about this facility, you might want to, in this day and age, it's great because we can all go to the internet, we can look this up, and probably zoom right in on a picture of that. Years ago, we'd have to make phone calls, we'd have to make a trip to the site to see it, but here we go. There's something special about that ceiling, and you might, anybody who bothers to find that out and address that in their first letter expressing interest is probably, going to be in better shape than people who completely ignore any of these little items that pop in the RFP. Okay? Now, after you have read all that, if you're working with a group, you may want to make copies of the RFP and get it distributed. Maybe you are teaming with somebody, you want to share it with them. And the important thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to conduct what I call a strategy session. And again, whether you're one person responding to RFPs all by yourself, or you're working on a team with other subconsultants, or you're working in a firm that has a marketing department, you should be conducting a strategy session. Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is why so few of us engage in it. Okay? We kind of want to jump into action. That's why we go right away to this requirements page and start producing stuff. Don't do that. Stop for a moment and strategize. The first thing that you want to, when you receive an RFP or you read an item like that one, is what does everybody know who's participating about the project and about the client? Information to me is currency in the marketing world. Any piece of information that you have that gives you an insight into the client can help inform your proposal and help you write a proposal that is going to be more responsive to the client and their needs. Okay? So you want to know everything that you know about them and about their about the client and about the particular project. You want to know who your competition is. Okay? Perhaps you're not really at the point in experience where you're always aware of who else might be going up against you. But you need to start to learn that. When you are shortlisted, who are the other teams that are shortlisted? Okay? You want to kind of start to look at their websites and see how they're presenting themselves and read up about them. Because you're competing with them. You want to be competing on equal footing. And then you want to come up with a statement as to why the client should choose you. Okay? So we're going to do a little exercise right now. All right? And the exercise is this. You get this RFP, or you read about it, for on-call contracts for all the state university campuses. And I have written this purposely to be as broad as could be so that there wouldn't be a company in this room whose firm wouldn't qualify for some aspect of this, okay? So projects may include but not be limited to athletic facilities, student centers, classrooms, labs, dorms, parking, master planning, vehicle maintenance shops, MTA train stations to each campus, new highway exits on the campuses, okay? Now, I would like everybody to, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, write down the reasons why your firm should be selected for this on-call contract. Okay? So 3 minutes, jot down, and don't overthink this, just as quickly as you can, write down why your firm should be selected for this on-call contract. Okay. How many of you had one or more of the following answers? How many of you had that you have experience on SUNY campuses? Okay. How many of you had experience specifically with the type of work that I listed? Okay. And how many of you said you had experience with the other consultants on your team? Okay. Now, what happens when everybody is saying the same thing? Did you ever think about that? Everybody says, I worked on SUNY campuses, I have experience with the project type, and I've worked with the other people on the team. It counters everything. Everybody, again, becomes equally qualified, and it doesn't qualify you any more than the person you're sitting next to. Okay? Now, any of you know Joan Kaplan? Joan Kaplan, okay. Joan Kaplan is one of the forces of nature in our industry, who was like a founding member of the Society for Marketing Professional Services. And the tip that I recall reading in an article she wrote was, after every statement you make like that, this is the reason you should select us. You should use the word therefore. Because once you complete the other side of that equation, you have given the client a reason why you should be selected. Now look at a statement like this one. We have experience working on your campus. On our last project, we spent 2 weeks visiting the campus, interviewing staff, and reviewing the existing master plan. That experience will translate to a quicker start-up for your current project. Additionally, on that project, we learned the preferences of your facilities department, and we believe that we will eliminate the learning curve and result in a more streamlined approval process. Do you see how that now tells the client why you should be selected? And why what you're saying is more than the person sitting next to you who just said, yeah, we've worked on that campus. You're telling them exactly what that means to them. What you really bring to the table. All right? So the next time you sit down to create a why us statement in response to an RFP, make sure that you explain not just your qualifications, but what those qualifications mean to the client and to their project.